and welcome back to Mixed Media Live. This is another week where we get to spend some time with y'all for another podcast. And so, what is Mixed Media? We're a weekly podcast happening every week at, 7:30 for now, maybe permanently, we'll see, Eastern Time. And what we do is we talk about pretty much anything related to the media that we like. So, music, movies, gaming, and pretty much anything about those things. So pretty loosey-goosey around here in terms of what we do. Hello. Let's see here. So what do I normally do? I had this problem last time where we took such a long break that I forget my whole monologue spiel. But so shout out to two people. 99 Crime and Rob Sharma still supporting us, I checked, for $5 a month on mixedmedia.locals.com. Now, I still forgot to change the promotion. Legitimately, I'm not making it up. I just completely forgot again. And I do have the power right now, because I have the page open, to change it right now. But if you're watching this entire show, if you're going to be with us, please do consider subscribing for $3 a month instead, because probably by the end of this episode, unless I forget again, I will be changing that back to $5 a month. But if you are on that page, you probably have noticed a few things popping up there. Like I said that they would. So what I'm essentially trying to do with the locals page is kind of fuse it with my own YouTube extra content type stuff, which is pretty cool. All the stuff that's on there right now is actually free. So if you didn't know, Locals is actually a free platform. You can go on there, you can make an account, and you can look at all the posts that are free. And you can see that I posted a non-free post, but you can't see the post. Right now, all the posts are free, which may not be forever. So if you want to go check those out right now to see the types of stuff that are going to be posted on the Locals, at least from my YouTube account, you can go over there. The pinned comment on there, or the pinned post on there, also has all the other, stuff that you get, including access to this live whiteboard over here, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So if you're interested at all, go check it out. I promise it'll be worthwhile. There's going to be stock footage being put up there. If you're a filmmaker, $5 a month for stock footage is literally a steal. So you can't that actually, if you had one thing that was the thing that was going to justify the purchase, and you would actually use stock footage, there's going to be beautiful, both raw and graded stock footage that's going to be going onto the platform, and $5 a month, to me, that is a no-brainer. If you enjoy the stuff I shoot, which obviously you do. Why wouldn't you? So go check that out for sure. Besides that, we should introduce ourselves. So my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella, and you can check out my website at ariella.co.
Hi, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and a media composer based in Los Angeles.
I'm Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and video game developer.
Sweet. Nathan, you're a little low, I think. Can you pick up your mic a little bit? Or
is this better? Same?
Okay, I'll fix it on my end.
Okay.
It sounds normal to me on from my end, so.
Okay, so it might be me. Okay. Sweet. So shout out to all of our awesome people on all the platforms that we're streaming on right now. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, and on Discord. And if you want links to any of those things, they're down in the description. Multiple ways to consume the live show. Okay, so without further ado, any interesting stuff happening in y'all's life?
It's the first time back at college since our last episode, because I wasn't here last time. Nothing crazy going on, I guess.
Today's the first day of the semester for me, although I don't have class on Monday, so but yes, the semester's starting. I am planning on after the show going out to hear a performance by a jazz group that has a guest performer. I can't think of a guy's name, but he's a vibraphone player. He's kind of the like protege of Lionel Hampton, who's the inventor of jazz vibraphone. So it should be interesting.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Cool. Yeah, for me, pretty busy week just doing work stuff, but what notable things happened? Oh, I watched Minari, which was about a year late from the hype, but I finally got around to it. And excellent film. I wish I had reviewed it, or I had time to review it when I was doing the Oscar films last year, because this would have been one of my favorites by far. Great film. Highly recommend it. Let's see. What else happened? I feel like this stuff happened, but I feel like they're all kind of specific business stuff that wouldn't make sense to any of y'all. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for the interesting stuff. How about news?
I've been pretty disconnected from what's going on in the video game world actually recently, so I actually don't know at all what's going on.
I haven't really noticed anything other than just lots of talk, as has been going on for the past few weeks. Lots of talk about AI music and what that means for composers.
Oh yeah, that might be an interesting roundtable topic too. AI art.
There is a lawsuit against Stable Diffusion going, or not Stable Diffusion is the software. I can't remember what the company's name. It's similar. The company, so Stable Diffusion is like an image generating software like Midjourney or Dolly. And there's a lawsuit against them. And I remember I want to say it's not quite copyright infringement. It's something like related or something like that.
I think I know what you're talking about. I think it's like they're claiming that it's a derivative work with no compensation.
Yes, that's the word that was used. Yeah, derivative work. The issue is I was playing the game that we'll be reviewing later while I was watching that video. So a lot of the information just kind of went through one ear and out the other.
Yeah, that's an interesting lawsuit. I actually I didn't read the actual lawsuit, but I went through an interesting summary of it, and very fascinating in terms of what the courts will do with it. You know what the most terrifying thing about the AI art stuff is? It's like the fact that like 80-year-old judges are going to try to understand AI and try to figure out what the heck they're supposed to do with it, and while lawyers use all kinds of tactics to try to confuse them. So,
I have heard, some people think that, in particular, like film and media music in general, but I think especially film music, at the higher levels, might, be one of the last things to try and touch AI music, in particular because one of the big things, and we've talked about this a lot in like the distant past, but like the ownership rights of music, and you can't copyright. Like if you came up with, use AI music to come up with the great, the next equivalent of the next Star Wars theme, right? Like a universally beloved like main theme or whatever, they can't own that because there's no copyright protection because the computer can't own,
Yeah.
So some people think that, in particular, film companies want to own all the rights for perpetual use of music that they use in case they have another Marvel franchise, right? They're going to stay away from AI music.
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting territory where we're entering.
Is something weird happening on the screen, or is that just me?
What? I don't see anything on my end.
Wow, mine is. I'll send a screenshot in Discord, but.
Yeah, no, but the interesting thing about it is like the question, the relevant legal questions, and I'm scared that the relevant legal questions won't be the things that we focus on in the case. Like I said, I'm kind of scared that like, like lawyers will be using words like neural net and like, whatever, and then they'll use like, a silly analogy, and the analogy gets embedded in the judge's mind, then that analogy actually doesn't correspond with reality too well, and things like that. But to me, the relevant legal questions are rather simple. It's just whether or not AI can develop intent. The answer is no. That's a very obvious answer to me. AI cannot develop intent, but the person who creates the AI has the intent to create it in the way that it's supposed to function, right? It's just code. It's not magic. It's not a magic bot. It's just code. So the person who made the code to do the thing is the one who's forming the intent for it to do auto anything. It's just automating things, right? So in terms of how it's deriving its end pieces, I think it depends on the particular AI that you're using. But I think most of them use like basically non-acquired pieces of art to amalgamate something out of those pieces of art and create a new thing. The actual question, the hard question for me, is whether that is a derivative product or not, because normally when you talk about derivatives, it's like I take a Jay-Z song, I rip the beat from it, and then I sell the beat. If you get what I mean, like that's usually what you're thinking of when you think of derivative works. Here, you have such large-scale automating ripping and mix and matching that there seems to be some property deprivation there. Like I could see someone making the argument that, well, this is just that at such a large scale and recombined in such a way that's not a new work. That would be one argument. The other argument would be, well, normally when we think of derivative works, we don't think of you being inspired by something and using that inspiration to create a new thing. I can see that being the opposing argument. Not that AI gets inspired, that's not the problem. It's just an analogy almost, like, the AI is just kind of using general ideas, concepts, contours, colors, these things you couldn't normally copyright, and then creating the derivative work from it. Fascinating topic. But also terrifying. So, yeah. On the movie end, nothing. I don't know. Mostly Marvel news. Nothing terribly interesting. There was one thing. Oh yeah, the Last of Us show is getting a lot of press, a lot of attention from a lot of reviewers and whatnot. Last of Us is my favorite video game of all time, so I refuse to watch it. Just because I'm terrified as to what abomination they've put in. But video game movies don't have a very good history, or video game shows, they don't have a very good history. The Witcher, I think, was the impetus for making something like this, because The Witcher actually did well on Netflix for like a season or something like that. I didn't watch that either, and I haven't played The Witcher. But I don't know what the controversy is at all. I just know that I'm probably not going to watch it because I don't see the point. I already know it's going to be probably terrifyingly bad, but I don't know. I don't know if you guys have heard anything about it.
No.
I know sales rose for the game after it launched, but I don't think that's really like a surprising statement. I don't know, maybe like the magnitude by which it increased was a lot. I'm not actually sure like how much it affected it. But yeah, I mean, I forgot about The Witcher. I was thinking that like definitely the big thing was Arcane, followed by Cyberpunk, Edgerunners.
Oh, Cyberpunk show. I didn't know that was well regarded.
I believe so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's fantastic. I don't know. I just know that I don't want my with Arcane. Like, there's no like League doesn't have like the game itself doesn't include the story like that. And so it's like, I don't know. Is The Last of Us the same story or just in movie form or show form? I should say. I don't know. I actually just don't know anything about it.
Yeah, because because I can see that being like I mean, if the native like format isn't game form, I don't really try to watch it in movie form. It just sounds like I'm asking for a worse experience. But if it's like different story and different characters, then maybe it's fine. I mean, I definitely could be fine, right? It's just the same universe at that point. Which, I mean, that can go either horrible or absolutely amazing. There's not really like a thing with that. With like Arcane, yeah, like there is no like story mode exactly in League, and same with With Edge Runners, I think it's not the same story. I know that. So, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think the thing about The Last of Us actually, out of all video games, probably has one of the better shots at it because they pretty much it's a very linear story, very like in the vein of movies, like the story itself. So if they just kind of stick to it, the story is so well written that they couldn't possibly mess it up. Like it's one of those video games that actually the writing behind it is so well done. Unfortunately, no offense to you, Nathan, a lot of video games have really bad writing.
Yeah, that's just known. I'm not really sure. I still don't know why that is. By the way, I haven't looked into that.
They just don't pay attention to it for whatever reason. Yeah,
I guess maybe. I guess it's like I don't know. It's like if you're making like I don't know. It's just like these are really that like not that it's not hard. Okay, I'm saying from a manager's perspective to hire someone that's confident. I know it's going to cost more. But like I don't know, it's like we were saying like okay, you have like a really good game otherwise, and it's just like the stinker writing. It's like you could like I don't know, just take a little bit of budget away from like something else. It's just very weird juxtaposition,
Yeah, I'm more afraid of them trying to like I don't know showify it like somehow, or I don't know what they would do to it. Honestly, it's a very contemplative game in a lot of ways, so I can't imagine. Like in a game, you're allowed to kind of just sit there if you want, if you get what I mean. Like, and it doesn't continue, so you can just kind of sit there and take in things and think about what just happened or what someone just said. Whereas, like in a show, I'm afraid that, they could just do that. That's totally an option. They could just give you time to breathe. But I'm scared that because it's a popular thing, it's going to be cut to be as tight as possible, and it's just going to be terrifyingly bad. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
It does seem like it is the same story, by the way, because it features both Joel and Ellie.
Well, they could change it from there.
Well, I'm sorry. I should say like it's not like a different like it's not just like some other like it's not unrelated. It's not just like the same universe. Something else is happening. I guess you could say if the story is different, then I guess you know what I mean, though, right?
Yeah.
Like they either change the story or they're using the story. It's not like they didn't change the story and it's gone somewhere else with it, some other point in history in the world or something.
Yeah. So yeah, if you've seen the show, you like the show, or you hate the show, I would be very interested to hear from our audience members what they think about it, because I don't know about it and I'm kind of scared to want to know about it because
it's only, why does it say 46 to 81 minutes running time? Does that mean the time per episode? Is that what that means? A long episode, if that's the case. Or a very short series. I assume it wouldn't be a range if it was a series. So I assume it has to be the episode.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. Yeah, it's got to be like 40-minute episodes, and there are 2 episodes out right now, so maybe that's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
There's one piece of news though, by the way, that I found out recently. So Microsoft said they'd be laying off 10,000 employees, which some of them belong to the Coalition Studio, Bethesda, and 343 Industries.
Oh, that actually brings me to a huge point. The economy is not looking good, folks. We're kind of we're on the Titanic, and it's all going down. Which I said a long time ago, that this was inevitable. But one question I've had is a very complex question. I've been thinking about doing like a Monday local show once we have enough people on locals, where I just kind of go through like the week, economically speaking, some data points, maybe give some people some like primary sources to go look at, because it's like a fusion of information, right, that gets you to sort of these conclusions. But I've been struggling with the question of whether or not either the dollar would be abandoned for the purposes of, I guess, short-term, public sentiment gain, or if the dollar would be we would be paying for the dollar for the next 10 years, right? I think at this point the Fed is committed to the latter. So, which is the logical, that was my original thought. What that means basically, though, for people who think I don't don't understand the words that just came out of my mouth. What that means though is that we're in for a pretty long haul of pain, and I say very seriously that if you don't know anything about economics, financial literacy, how to handle your money, you need to learn ASAP. It's going to be very bad, very bad. So yeah, the layoffs aren't even layoffs are the last thing that happens in a recession, people. They're the last thing to go is employment. And then you're really in the toilet. So plan ahead now while employment is possible. That is my warning. And yeah, don't mean to be depressing, but it is actually quite depressing. Okay, so yes, on that note, that lovely note, we shall continue on with our show with gaming. So are you ready, Nathan?
Sure.
All right, here we go.
Mixed Media Gaming.
Welcome to Mixed Media Gaming. This is the review segment of Mixed Media Gaming. I was supposed to do this segment last time, but I wasn't here, unfortunately. I couldn't make it because I was moving into my current dorm. So I'll be talking about a new-ish kind of game called... I actually don't know how to pronounce it. So, well, the full name is Your Only Move is Hustle, but I won't call it that. I'll get to that later, I guess. But yeah, I guess before we get into that, we should introduce ourselves. So I'm Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and game developer.
Hi, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and media composer.
And my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and a media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella. You can find my website at ariella.co.
Nice. All right, so yeah, I guess I'll get right into the review. So, Your Only Move is Hustle is a game that came out by a solo developer named Ivy Sly on December 14th, 2022. It was released on itch.io. That is the earliest known reference I can find of it. I don't know if it was released on some other obscure platform before that, but that's the first point of contact with the general public that it had. About a month later, the name... so the game was originally called YOMI Hustle, or YOMI Hustle. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'll call it YOMI Hustle, though. The name was switched about a month later to Your Only Move is Hustle over some copyright issues with another game, which I thought was really funny because the game was dead, pretty much. No one was buying the game. The game was fairly old. I don't know why the legal action was even threatened. It seems very useless, but yeah, I guess they could not use that name. So the name was switched to Your Only Move is Hustle, which, if you realize, is still YOMI Hustle. So everyone still calls it YOMI Hustle because that is the acronym. So yeah, that's what the game is called now. It's a turn-based fighting game, which is really weird, but I'll explain that what that means. So imagine a fighting game, less like Street Fighter and more like Super Smash Bros. And make it turn-based. Sounds quite weird. If you'll be familiar with this concept, if you ever heard of a game called Tory Bash, which is sort of like a three-dimensional fighting game of sorts that is turn-based. And the way it works is that you can every turn you can activate certain muscles to either contract or extend of your fighter, and you have very, very granular control over your fighter. And at least not sort of drunken style fighting, because you don't really have the time steps are quite large in Toy Bash, so it's not like you have super fine control over how your fighter moves exactly. That was the inspiration. So YOMI Hustle takes that idea and puts it in a sort of two-dimensional setting. So as I said, it's more like a Super Smash Bros. Type game where it's two-dimensional. Unlike Tory Bash, the time steps are much smaller. So in terms of the smallest time step, one turn is one frame. So if you don't know, in fighting games the length that certain things take, such as a certain attack, are measured in frames rather than in seconds. For reasons of ease of balance and stuff like that, you can have an attack that takes 3 frames or whatever, and also the idea that everyone's playing on an even level playing field. So regardless of like a frame rate, right? Generally speaking, there's like a frame rate cap, and that would be the sort of true one turn is one frame kind of thing. That makes sense. So in YOMI Hustle, every action takes a certain amount of frames to do, right? So one action might take 7 frames, one action might take say 14 frames, right? Now, because different actions can take up a different amount of frames, it gets kind of complicated in that turns can become sort of out of sync. So if I did an action that took 7 frames and my opponent did an action that took 14 frames, I actually get to go again sooner because I have a 7 frame advantage. So I guess do another thing I could do, or I can choose to do nothing. That's also technically a move, I guess. You can choose to do nothing and wait until the next person, your opponent, has their turn, and then you both get your turn. If that makes sense. So yeah, that's how that works. Does that make sense to you guys? I don't know if I explained that well.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Okay. So at first, it can be very overwhelming because each character has a ton of different movement options. Because it's turn-based, traditionally in a fighting game, if you have, like, say, a controller, you're confined to all the controller buttons plus movement inputs to modify them. Or if you, are on like a keyboard or mouse, you only have, so many keys you can press that are within reach of your hands, right? And games sort of extend this by having combinations of buttons you can press to do different things, and as I said before, movement inputs. But because everything is turn-based, there's no need to have to have all the buttons within reach, within a moment's notice. You just have to click a button on the screen for it to happen, which means that the amount of moves that there can be is virtually infinite in terms of the thing, the idea of like being able to use them, right? So it can seem a bit overwhelming at first because if you look at the UI, it's just a whole bunch of buttons pretty much for all the different things you can do. Although as you play, it starts to become a lot less overwhelming, and you realize actually you can a lot of these things are clearly useless in these certain areas, and you sort of pare it down every turn, and it's like. It's not like you're actually looking at 15 different moves you can use. It's more like every turn it's like, there's really only like 5 things that could actually make sense here, But at first it can definitely be overwhelming just looking at the UI. At the moment there are 3 characters. There is a ninja, cowboy, and wizard. All of them sort of have their own separate things to them. The ninja is a sort of more of an all-around character. The cowboy is, the cowboy's bad. This is what the cowboy is pretty much. But at least at the moment, in the current state of the game changes a lot, but in the current state it's bad. But I'd say the cowboy is pretty good. It's pretty good for being able to do combos infinitely, pretty much. And the wizard is like kind of like, if you're familiar with fighting game terms, there's this concept of like a zoner, which there's certain types of archetypes in fighting games. One of them being a zoner, where I guess the easiest way to explain it would be like a character whose attacks and abilities allow them to sort of corral a player into a certain zone, let's say, or make certain zones inaccessible, essentially doing that, right? Corralling the player into a certain zone. So I guess the wizard has, some level of zoning abilities. I don't know if that'd be classified as a zoner per se by like a fighting game enthusiast. I don't know. And also is like specializes in being able to throw an absurd amount of projectiles up the screen at any given time. And there's also a robot that's coming soon. I believe February 2nd, the robot's coming out. I haven't seen much footage, but what I have seen is that the robot just seems very bad at combos. That's all I've noticed. Other than that, I'm not too sure what the robot entails. But yeah, this is essentially the general idea of the game. In terms of graphics and SFX, it's actually, if you look at it, it looks like, it's kind of like, potentially you might say poorly drawn. As Irving said before the episode started, in the thumbnail of our the episode thumbnail, you can see, it says YOMI Hustle, and that he drew it himself. And, I assume there was not really much. Oh yeah, the title. I mean, I didn't mean to imply that. He drew just YOMI Hustle, right? Which, actually fits the style really well. And it seems like you might look at it and be like, oh, it seems like a very like lazily made thing, given that Irving was able to just make like a very fitting Yomi Hustle title in I don't know how long, but I assume not particularly long, without, yeah. But it's actually really, really consistent. I don't know how to explain it. It's like, it actually does look nice when you're playing the game. Everything sort of feels like it has that sort of like, it's like a mix of like childlike drawing and odd professionalism. I don't know how to explain it. It's very intentional, definitely. Or if it's not intentional, it is at least very like seems natural, if you get what I'm saying, to whoever drew it. I assume it's the solo developer. I don't think any of the work was contracted out, but as in, like it wasn't like something he struggled with necessarily. Oh, that's a bad way to say it. But as in, he's good at art. That's what I should say. That's what I should say. And so I guess you can't really hear sound effects because that's not really possible at the moment. but trust me that the.
Can you hear me now?
Whatever? Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I was actually muted. I think. Okay, whatever. Tech issues aside, I actually have a link to a video. I can play it for a moment if you would like, with some audio.
Sure. That works.
Awesome.
If you're listening on audio only, just imagine. You have sound effects, you can imagine.
Yes. Hold up. I had just found it as you were saying that.
Okay. That makes the whole concept a lot clearer.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not familiar with fighting games and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're gonna wait for this ad real quick, and then we'll play it.
Oh, okay. Well,
you know how it is.
Yeah, okay, you got it.
In about 1 second, we'll have it. Oh, another ad. Okay, no, you talk.
I'll keep talking. Yeah, so I was saying about the graphics and the SFX, very consistent, looks nice, and there's this nice feature that once you've finished a match, and as I said before, it's turn-based, so you're not really like watching it in the same way as this Super Smash Bros. Game, for example. You can watch the whole replay back, which is really cool. I'm not sure if this video you're going to watch is going to be the replay or the actual game. I'm going to assume it's the replay because that's generally the thing people post on YouTube. So you can play whenever you're ready.
All right, here it is. And hopefully you guys can hear it. Is that music part of the game?
I can't hear anything, so I'm gonna. I don't know.
Is there metal music?
What's the music? No.
Okay, so maybe this wasn't the best example because I thought it was just going to be a straight replay. But at least here, I'll play this silently in the background while you talk, and then I'll try to find one with good audio.
Right. Actually, my next topic was actually the music. And the fact that it's not very good. That was one of the biggest issues of the game. The music is very short. It's a very short loop, and it's incredibly repetitive. So I just turned it off because after like 2 minutes listening to the same thing over and over again, it is pain. Which is very strange because I've made my own music loops, and what's interesting is I was making a project for a school club where we made a video game, and I made some music for that. One of the tests was because it was a relatively short loop. It was no like symphony piece, right? It's just like a short little loop, right? I want to say maybe a minute at most for the longest song that would loop over and over again. We actually had someone literally just take the song and listen to it on it repeat while just doing random tasks, right? They're not playing the game, just doing random tasks and seeing if it just got annoying eventually. And then that was a test to see if, something that we can actually put in the game. Because, obviously if it's annoying, then it's not a good sign. So I actually didn't really have that many issues with making not annoying music. I don't really know how to explain, because I'm no professional at making music. I wouldn't say that I necessarily designed it for not being annoying to listen to repeatedly. I can't tell you exactly what qualities of music make them annoying to listen to, but I can tell you that this music is annoying to listen to when repeated. So yeah, I turned it off. There's no volume slider, by the way. It's very jank. I don't know why. There's no volume slider. I just turned it off. So yeah, you find it. I didn't see what was happening in the background, but
I'm pulling up now. But I found one with. Oh, I forgot. Maybe now it's gonna come up. Hold up. Okay, good. I found a video that actually just has the raw sound. So if you're interested, here's what you meant the game sound, right? Like in game.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, so this is what it sounds like.
I guess I'll narrate over what's going on right here. So as you can see, you have a lot of different buttons at the bottom, right? As I said, it can look a little bit overwhelming. On the left side, you have, what is that? Is that the wizard? I think that's the wizard's moveset. Yeah, it is. On the right side, you have the cowboy's moveset. For some reason, it has a sword. I don't know why they have a cowboy. Oh, actually, fun fact. I have reversed engineered the entire code of this game, right? I'm not like a genius. It is like a program to do it. So to be clear, I just put in the program and negating back all the code and stuff like that, right? And the cowboy was seemingly not meant to be a cowboy at first, because the files for him is in a folder labeled sword and gun guy or something like that. So that explains why the cowboy has a sword. But yeah, so
I guess they couldn't think of a combination. Well, I mean, there are plenty of those actually in history of sword and gun guys. Could have been a pirate.
Yeah, actually, that'd be a really good one. I guess. Well, the character has a lasso as well, which doesn't really fit the pirate theme. So I don't really know. But I think that's really the only cowboy-like thing other than the gun. I guess the fact that it has 6 shots, so it's like it has a little revolver, like I don't know what we call it, like wherever you put the bullets in. The little revolver icon on the side. I guess it's somewhat cowboy themed. But yeah, so you have a left side and a right side, each representing a different character. I'm not sure whoever's playing. I'm not sure who they are in this fight, but I'll imagine that they're the was it a wizard? The wizard in this instance, right? Actually, they are. I can see them doing stuff. So the wizard stuff is on the left side, and the cowboy stuff is on the right side. As you can see, he has access to buttons of both characters because you can preview what it would look like if the opponent did a certain move by clicking on the button on their side, and that helps a lot, quite a bit.
It seems like the game is moving really fast, though. Like how you said, like how much time do you have to like preview someone else's move and make your own move? It seems like this is all rather continuous.
No, so what's happening is you're seeing a preview of everything that's happening. So although like you can see it like repeating over and over again, it's just a preview, and he's selecting different options to see what would happen if he did each move. In this instance, there are a lot of settings you can change about the game, but it seems like they're using like a chess-styled timer, where essentially they might have like say 30 minutes to play the entire game. 30 minutes per person is what I mean. So if you have not locked in your turn, the timer goes down until it reaches 0, and then you would lose. But as long as you're locked in, then the timer doesn't go down, and you can. In chess, I believe you can set this as well in this game as well. When you lock in, you get like say 5 seconds of time back or something like that. So if you're going really fast, then you can actually gain time. That's not how the game works by default. By default, it's way more stressful in the fact that you have 30 seconds per turn, like flat every single time, which sounds like a lot of time at first. But when there are so many different options, especially when you're newer to the game, you're not really sure what all those options do by a glance. 30 seconds can definitely feel like it's not enough at all. But yeah, if you can tell, I'm not sure if YouTube compression is going to town on this or if it's just Skype, but there is underneath the players a little thing that says frame advantage or frame. Does it say frame? Yeah, frame advantage, right? And a number, either positive or negative. If it has a positive number, that means that based on the actions that the player is previewing, they are set up to go first essentially on the next turn, and that, like as I said before, if you have someone doing a 7-frame move and someone doing a 14-frame move, the person doing the 7-frame move has a frame advantage of 7 frames, so they'll be able to move. They're doing an action 7 frames before the next player, and on the opponent's screen it shows -7. Yeah, so hopefully that visual aid helps a lot with understanding the game.
Wait! I just had a thought. Is this game inspired by the childhood game Ninja? It's because it's like pretty much that.
Oh, I don't know actually. I forgot.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah,
it's kind of the idea.
I kind of like that. It's like that in a sense, right? Yeah, turn-based real-life fighting game Ninja.
Yeah. Continue.
Yeah. So. Yeah, in terms of replayability, I'd say the game certainly feels replayable at the start, but it sort of starts to drop off as you play. I should note that, by the way, that the game technically has a single-player mode, although it is not really like it is pretty much exclusively used for either for testing things out, pretty much, right? Testing out, say, a combo, for example, because you're essentially just playing against yourself. You have control over both characters. Now, you might think, well, this can be like a local multiplayer game, right, where you and your friend are taking turns, but the fact that you can see what your opponent's doing because you just look at the screen and you can always see what your opponent's doing at any time kind of breaks the game. So it ends up just being used solely for just testing out different concepts and stuff like that. So multiplayer is really like where the main game is. So in terms of replayability, you think it feels like there's a lot at first, but as you go on, you start to realize that when you play public matches, the level of skill is not like that great, I'll say, and eventually, if you play consistently, it becomes just kind of easy in a way, and it gets kind of boring. So you end up having to play private matches against people who you know are actually like decent by going to, say, like the YOMI Hustle Discord server or little Discord communities that have been created that are not the official one, and asking people who seem to be not trash, hey, I want to play the game or whatever, and then that's how that works. There's no sort of any type of progression or anything like that. So, there's no unlocking characters at the moment. But the game is a work in progress. The game is still in I don't know if it's considered beta or alpha, but it hasn't reached version 1.0 yet. So it is still, really new. Less than, I said, I think I said November it came out, right? So it's only, like 4 months ago. So, aside from that, it gets really frequent updates, which is good and bad. Good because obviously, good balancing changes. It's a new game, so new issues and stuff are always being worked out. But it's kind of bad in the sense is that it's gotten to the point where one day I downloaded 2 updates for the game. The game updated twice in a day, and the changes are never like they're not generally small. Like it'll be like a change in, say, like the frame data of some attacks. So attack might take like 2 extra frames, but that actually does matter a lot in this game where even single frames matter quite a bit. So the game does change pretty frequently, and it's really fun to be in the Discord server and watch as people come up with new ideas and stuff like that for a new game. That's like a really like interesting thing, is that like I've never been involved in a new game where there's so much like testing. Essentially, people are discovering new things. It's pretty interesting time just watching it all unfold. And I can definitely see a competitive scene growing out of this. There are already tournaments, as far as I'm aware, they're for fun. There's like cash prizes involved or anything like that. I wouldn't say the game is like stable enough for cash prizes, considering the meta changes every moment based on the updates. And as I said before, the Cowboys trash, and that wasn't always the case. The Cowboys got nerfed into infinity pretty much. But that's pretty much all I have to say, I think, about the game.
Very cool. Oh no, ad.
Oh, actually, there is. Oh, someone's spamming the chat. But
I'm getting rid of them.
There is something else I had to say, and that is that the game will be on. I mentioned that the robot will be coming out, I believe, on February 2nd. That's because that'll be the Steam update. So it's going from HIO to Steam. Currently, the game is free. I forgot to say that as well. The game is free, but it accepted donations. If you donated, I'm not sure if it's like a minimum threshold or something, but somehow, if you donated, you will get a free copy of the game on Steam, and I believe on Steam it'll be $5, which is absolutely insane. This game is not worth $5. This game is worth significantly more, in my opinion. But I don't know. I wish I could tell the dev like, hey, like, I don't really know if you want to do this. $5 is very cheap for a game. And this game is clearly the value shown. This game is, I want to say, like, well, if you go online right now, right, on any given instance, you'll probably find maybe like it shows you how many people are online at a time, maybe 300 people online, which is not like crazy big game, right? Before a solo dev game, no publisher, came out 4 months ago, that is pretty good. And if you look at the Discord server, there are currently 16,000 people online.
Wow.
I think there's 40,000 people here total, if I recall correctly. So, yeah, that's kind of insane.
Yeah, no, that's pretty impressive.
So I wouldn't consider it's a $5 type game, but it also reached 100,000 wish lists on Steam today, I believe.
Oh wow, very cool. That's like app price, right? Like $4.99 on the App Store.
Yeah, although I don't know if people buy apps anymore, generally speaking.
That's fair.
No, actually, I think apps are usually like $1.99, right? Or am I wrong? It is
Oh
decreased.
no, I mean of course you can buy apps for $1.99, but I've
So
seen
yes.
like apps on the App Store for $4.99.
Yeah, that's definitely existed. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, you see the badge of approval. So
Yep.
tell the dev that Mixed Media sent you. Cool. All right, is that it?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Want to transition us to the arguing with Reddit segment?
Sure. Thanks for watching this segment of Mixed Media. Our next segment will be, is it Irving's segment? Yeah, Irving's segment, where we'll be doing Arguing with Reddit, where he responds to some hot takes on Reddit. Might disagree with them, might agree with them. Who knows? So, stick around to watch that if you're watching the live episode. If you're not watching the live episode, then that episode should be uploaded later. And make sure to join our Discord if best way of contacting us if you have anything to say about my review, either positive or negative. That's definitely the best place to reach us. You can find our Discord by going to mixedmediapodcast.com, I think. Yes. mixedmediapodcast.com, and you'll find the links to all our things. So not only our Discord, but every platform you might find us, including YouTube, Twitch, Spotify, and say Apple Podcasts, which I've recently started using, by the way. Actually, is my preferred podcast application. So thanks for watching the segment.
Sweet. All right, here we go.
Mixed Media Movies.
And we're back. If you are live and you're confused as to why we had a little section break there, it's because this gets chopped up into sections for the podcast. So on this live show, you get to be behind the scenes, you get to participate. We want your comments and all the things for you to participate in the podcast as we do it. Right now, we have the Arguing with Reddit section where we'll be talking about, the internet's opinions about things and my opinion on top of that, pretty much. Basically, my companions here, our co-hosts, have picked hot takes from all Reddit, it looks like today, for me to react to, and I'll be reacting to those without having seen them beforehand. I've also picked one for myself, so I'll be reacting to that as well. Always, if you have your own hot takes, you can always post them on our Discord. If you go to mixedmediapodcast.com, there's a link to our Discord on there as well. But briefly, we should introduce each one of ourselves. So my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania, and I own a company called Ariella.
Hi, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and a media composer living in Los Angeles.
And I'm Nathan Nestor, a 3D modeler and game developer.
Sweet. So, as we always do, let's just jump right into it. So first, I'm going to pick out Ben's. So Ben, you want to explain?
Yeah. So let me pull it up here. This is in r/movies. OK Coyote 6888 says, the title is "Losing My Love of Movies," and person says, essentially, summarize this here. They aren't interested in most of the films that are in movie theaters now. That there are never, good, low budget, or interesting and creative stories in theaters. The things that are in theaters are not interesting. Nothing that the person finds when scrolling on their various streaming devices is interesting, and the person likes the experience of watching films with other people, but feels like it gets harder to find other people who want to watch movies with them as they get older. Yeah.
And so it is. I mean, yeah, this is the epitome of what's bound to happen as we go on this crazy death spiral in cinema. This is an encapsulation of all of it. Imagine having, hours and hours of content, at your disposal, and still not finding anything to watch. Isn't that bizarre?
People feel like that about games, too.
Yes, exactly. And this phenomenon is not new. Like, people have been talking about this for a long time. I mean, you probably heard casually with a friend, like, man, there's nothing good on Netflix these days. I mean, there's hours and hours and hours and hours of stuff on Netflix, but there's nothing good on it.
In the games industry, what I think, like, because people will say that too, like, I don't really know what I want to play, right? I'm like, dude, there are so many things you like. I don't know if you understand like, how many things there are that you could play. Like, I think I don't know, because I never really understand it, because certainly just based on the sheer number, and even if you had the worst developers in the world, they would just eventually arrive at something like decent once accidentally, right? So sometimes I'm like, how much of this is like the industry's fault, and how much of this is like the person's fault for not like just looking, or like looking harder or something like that, because like maybe it doesn't appear like on the front page of Steam or something. Maybe it doesn't have a lot of advertisements or whatever, but like you can like find them, right? I don't know if it's even that hard,
Well, I think what ends up, because there surely isn't literally nothing that this person hasn't watched on whatever streaming purpose. Like, every streaming service at least has some good stuff on it, like, mostly that they didn't produce. Most of the good stuff is stuff that they bought, frankly. But even so, they have something that's probably good to this person on there. But I think the more, I think it's more of a sentiment and a mood than it is like really finding that specific movie, because it's like what I'm being presented with as what I should like, what I'm being presented with what should be the fresh new thing, the environment around me where people, want they want to consume or don't even want to consume anything at all. It's all just depressing. Like, so it's like you see like, Blood Diamond or something like that on Netflix. You're like, cool, it's got like all these people in it. It's an older movie. It's very well reviewed. It's probably good. But then you're like, but no one's talking about it right now. And even if I could, normally if that were happening, I was out watching an old movie and I want to share in the joy of consuming it, I would get a group of friends together. We'd sit down and eat popcorn and we'd have fun watching it. But now everyone's on TikTok. And everyone's got a VR screen on their face. And everyone's like, no one wants to come to my house to watch a movie with me, which used to be so fashionable and now has become so unfashionable, right? And I think that's more akin to what I think this person's probably feeling, overall, because surely they have access to something that's like decent, but there's no inspiration behind it. There's like no will to live, almost in a metaphorical sense.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me. I'm going to talk in a little bit about a movie from 1937, and I was thinking about this last week, like looking back at all the films I watched in 2022, and what did I enjoy? I enjoyed a film from 1937. I'm trying to remember what year I watched Andrei Rublev. Like January 1st last 2022. I watched a bunch of Kurosawa, and then I saw some other stuff from like the 90s. But like, what did I watch that was current? That like, what was I even interested in from this past year? Like, okay, I watched Knives Out and Top Gun. What else was I gonna watch from like 2022? I'm going the opposite, 1937, right?
Yeah, it's I think it's a mood. I think that's what it is. I think it's a mood of fatigue with what they're feeding us. It's just not healthy. It's not good. It doesn't speak to larger things and blah blah blah. It's just eventually it's gonna weigh down on the whole thing, and then cinema's gonna die if we keep on this way. And that's not an exaggeration. I mean, you add an impending recession on top of the whole thing, and people can't even go to the movie theaters because they can't afford it. I mean, you might be looking at the death of the art form actually at this point, right? So, like, the thing is, the thing that people have to realize is that the industry just doesn't care. Like, they just like they would read this post and be like, all right, so but where's the money? Like, that would be their retort. They'd be like, I mean, you pay for the service, right? Okay, as long as we're both on the same page. You pay for the service. You don't watch anything. I don't really care. So that's where we're at right now. And if you want to, I guess I'll come at this from two perspectives. One perspective is if you want to change that sort of general mood, you got to get mad. Like, like you got to like be like, you're not feeding me good things, and you got to be loud, and you got to find the people who are still holding on just like you, group with them, and scream, basically, and amplify your voice as much as possible, and cancel those subscriptions, man. Like they don't do anything to help the film industry perpetuate. They just don't. They're not helping. So just cancel your subscriptions and go buy some Blu-rays of some old stuff. That's fine. Here, and this is the other perspective I was going to come to. At this point, one way that you might want to rediscover your own personal love of film is to maybe come at it from a completely different perspective. And sometimes I do that too. Like sometimes I'm just consuming what other people are watching because I'm curious, and I get fatigued with that. But then sometimes I'm like, you know what? I've never actually watched a spaghetti western, right, or something like that. And then I just like, why don't I just binge like a bunch of spaghetti, like, and maybe like, do something different. Like say, I'm gonna study X filmmaker, or I'm gonna watch all the films that have music written by this composer, right, and so on and so forth. And that might be a way to like sort of step outside of the algorithms of Netflix and whatever, and sort of step into your own, commanding your own ship in a sense, and just having fun with it from a different perspective. But unfortunately, this is quite common. And you know what's interesting? The most interesting part of this whole thing is you see people complain about it sometimes in Letterboxd, but the majority of people on Letterboxd want to say there is no problem. I find that really disheartening, unfortunately. You see people complain, and you see a whole bunch of people attack this person for complaining, saying, there's so many movies to watch, why don't you just go buy some Blu-rays? Because they don't understand that the problem is the culture is dying, not necessarily that they can't find a movie. There's a lifetime of movies they probably like if they could just find them all, right? But that's not the issue. It's the culture that's dying, and really this fatigue and feeling is just a symptom of that. So, if you're on Letterboxd and you see that kind of stuff, instead of yelling at someone, being like, why don't you get your own, right? Or something like that, and being like, stop being such a downer, why don't you just listen for a bit, maybe try to hear the subtext behind it, and imagine that person is actually 80% of moviegoers and get scared. So, that's the reality of it. Okay. That's my thought on that one. That was a good prompt. Let's see. So this next one is from Nathan. So if you want to explain to me.
I think the post got removed. I opened it and it says this post was removed by moderators.
What? What's wrong with it?
I don't know. It was I don't know like the rules of R-Sauce movies, but like I remember what it was. I'll say it again. But basically, all it was the title is categories that the Academy should add, and it was just talking about the Oscars and saying, there's some missing categories, and it gave suggestions of 2 categories. I think one of them was best voice acting. Maybe the 2 is best voice actor and best voice actress or something like that. And then it would just ask like, what do you guys think? But the interesting is even the post is gone. Like there are still like replies you can see, so like you can see a bunch of suggestions.
Yeah, I wonder if there's an Academy mega thread or something that they were supposed to put it in or something like that. I don't know, or like an Oscars mega thread, I should say. But in any case, yeah, I mean, this is like a topic that comes around every award cycle, which is like, what category should there should not be. Really, the reason why it keeps coming up because there's no underlying logic behind the categories they do have. It just seems kind of like whatever they feel like. So because there's no underlying logic, people are like, well, if this is going to be in there, why isn't this there? And that's just going to be forever until they create some sort of underlying logic for the way that they organize the award show. But let's humor this discussion and see what we've got. Best performance of a single stunt, or for a stunt performance. A single stunt would be kind of specific.
How would you judge that?
I don't know. That'd be very specific.
Also, it would be also. I imagine, I don't know, even if I'm watching a stunt, how much is CGI and all sorts of non-real stuff, and how much
neither
is
does the Academy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure if a single stunt, but best stunt performance would be an interesting, or just overall performance might be an interesting category. Again, don't know what the underlying reason that would be in there, but I don't know, some comparable thing, best crying or something, something specific about performing, might be, but we don't have any logic for a category, so why not? Let's see here. We've got the Academy already doesn't get it right with the award. Yeah, that's the problem. Okay, we've got best animated film, but then we've also got so we have some genre subcategories, but not others. It's so bizarre. It's just a mess. I don't know why they do it the way they do. Let's see here. Best food.
What? You see that?
Right.
I see it. Okay. You just read the entire thing. Is kind of I'm not entirely sure.
Food? That'd be funny. Best Western. So there's a genre, but then I don't know, whatever. Okay, and this is go on to be sarcastic, clearly.
I feel like their files is just a mess. I don't know what's happening. Best punctuation. What does that mean?
I don't know. To be honest, the Academy itself doesn't know that much about any of these things particularly. That's the sad truth, right? So, if you add a technical category, best color or something like that, it's you might as well just say best your favorite movie. That it means the same thing to them. So, practically speaking, they might eliminate a movie because it's less saturated than another one, and be oh, that one has more color. That's not the way you should judge color, and it's not very helpful. But that's kind of how it goes. So it's not, I feel like the only stuff that's interesting at the Academy Awards are basically best feature, best documentary, the really broad ones that people can understand. Well, that's also if they watch them at all.
They have sound editing and sound editing and sound editing and sound design?
I think it's mixing, no?
There are two sound, right? There's
yes,
maybe it's sound mixing and sound editing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, does anybody know what those things mean outside of very specific subset of people who work in that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's kind of a joke. I think they should focus. Honestly, if the Oscars wants to pick a underlying logic, they should probably focus on top of the line skill sets. So we're talking about acting, directing, cinematography, composer, the top line talent. They should focus on those. Okay, and you can have supporting actors, although even that gets weird because the underlying logic of what that means is kind of strange. But whatever. You should focus on the top line stuff, and you should probably focus on categories that people can readily understand, because it's the same as the Academy at this point. It's not as if there's a large chasm at this point between the Academy's understanding of sound editing versus the audience. They actually both don't understand what the heck that is. So you should just probably nix it, at that point. I don't know. If I'm trying to think of like if it's going to be an entertaining award ceremony, maybe like the best way to go about it is to celebrate the forefront of the art in a way that is readily intelligible. And if you want to celebrate more, you've got to educate people. But as we talked about in the last segment, that doesn't make money, or at least it's not perceived to make money, at least. And so, well, it's probably not going to happen. So, yeah. So that's my thoughts on that one. And the last one here is from me, and it comes from r/box office, and it's about one of the most ridiculous franchises of all time. Let's see here. There it is. And it's the post is, why do people think Fast 10 isn't going to gross $1 billion? Fast 9, F9. I love the styling of these movies. It's just so absurd at this point. Fast X versus F9. It's just it's just silly. F9, released in the very peak of COVID, was absolutely horrid, but still managed to gross over $700 million. And this person has a very good point. I would not bet against Fast X getting $1 billion. Like, come on. Have you not seen, do you not know why Vin Diesel is on this train forever? It's because it makes a lot of money. But I will say something that I saw in the comments, because I did peek at the comments briefly. Someone had made a very good point that I agree with. Let's see here. I pass it. Oh yeah, so it says here, this is Blockbusted, says, to be fair, Fast and Furious series was having a pretty good run from Fast 5 to Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw, right? Now, I've only seen like 3 Fast and Furious movies, so like I am by no means an expert, but the one that sticks in my mind is Furious 7, I believe. Which was such a riot. It was hilarious. Like, legitimately. It was so stupid, but it was the most funny. It's just parody, right, at this point. It's just a parody of cinema. It's a very expensive parody of cinema. Like, we're taking Bugattis and we're blowing them up, actually. And there's some, like, weird satisfaction and hilariosity that comes with that is just, actually pure, like, on a pure entertainment level, it's just really entertaining. And I'm not really mad at that at all. I'm not, we need stuff like this too. It's just to have some stupid, but like high quality fun, if that makes sense. And, yeah, so there's that. Now, I have not seen, F9. Sounds like a key on my keyboard, F9. I have not seen F9, and I wouldn't be surprised if it sucked. I mean, they're bound to. I mean, I've seen Tokyo Drift, and that is a terrible movie. I mean, really bad. But that was when it took itself seriously. That's like one of the first like 3 movies or something like that. That's when they took themselves, like, they were actually trying to tell a serious story, and we got rid of that notion a long time ago. Which was good. And so, maybe Fast 9 sucked, or F9 sucked, and I'm open to that idea. It, could have sucked. But Fast X might not. And so, if it makes $1 billion because it doesn't suck, or it's something in between, it's mediocre, right? Like, don't be surprised. And also don't underestimate the audience's memory of the good Fast and Furious movies. Obviously, this happens with every franchise, right? Like, they make a few good movies, and people will hold on for dear life, waiting for the next good one. And 5 movies later, and they're still all bad. And they're still waiting for the next one to see, this time will they not mess it up? So, I mean, they're gonna watch Fast X. Let's just be honest. If they've been good, truly, up until Hobbs and Shaw, which was rather recent, like I want to say like maybe 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, something like that. If they've been good up until then, people still remember that. They remember the fun they had with that, and they want to see if they can have the same stupid fun again with Fast X. And I hope they do. I hope it does well. So, yeah, there's that. That's my opinion on the whole thing. A lot of people are saying that, yeah, if you cash in too much bad energy, you make too much bad movies, your franchise is doomed to fail. I would say yes and no. I mean, on one level, yes. At some point, you're just going to stop losing the trust of the audience. But no, in the sense that it depends on who is making it. Some people control the whole theater chain. Disney. So, anyway, that's my thought on this one, and that will be the end of the segment. Oh yeah, I didn't ask you guys any thoughts on that one.
I've never seen any of them, so
yeah, same.
Okay.
So,
I would recommend. Maybe that range that person gave is correct, but they're really stupid. They're really stupid. But if you want to turn off some brain cells and just have a riot, this is a great friends and popcorn type experience. So if you want to convince your friends, talking to the last person to come and remember what having fun with a movie looks like, just grab a bunch of popcorn and some unhealthy crap and shovel in your mouth while you watch the stupidest thing that you've seen in a long time. Spend like $100 million on making it. And it'll be a good time. So yeah, there you go. Random side note, when I was in Florida for Christmas, I showed my in-laws Who Killed Captain Alex.
Oh, classic.
One of my favorite comedies of all time. And it is definitely held up. I was laughing the entire time. And just to show people that you don't need $100 million to have the same effect as Fast and Furious 6 necessarily. You can be you're gonna have $2 in a dream. So there you go. Okay. All right. So if you enjoyed that segment, please hit the like button. If you disagreed with anything that I said, you thought that it was silly or stupid, this one was relatively non-controversial. I'm not sure what you would hate me for, but I'm sure there's people find all kinds of reasons to hate other people, so I'm sure you could. And I would love to get the hate mail at mixedmediapodcast.com. Go over there, and there's a link to the Discord. Send your hate mail to me, at me on our Discord, and we can have a conversation. I won't hate you no matter what you say. That's a challenge. I won't hate you, ever. So, yeah, and hope to see you on the next one. Right now, we've got Ben with his topic. So,
real quick, before we change, I have some news about gaming. I cannot not say this episode. I just found out. I don't know if you want to do this now or later. So,
do you want it to be part of this segment or the other one?
It's not related to anything. So
let's just do it in this segment. That probably makes the most sense.
Okay, sorry. It's kind of weird, right? I found something quite strange. So if you head on over to steamcharts.com, right, and you want to see, look at the glorious all-time records for games with most peak concurrent players, you'll find there's a new entry, and I've never heard of it ever. Okay, it sits at number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, between a little bit of Apex Legends and a little below Cyberpunk 2077. It is called Goose Duck. What is that? And why did it have 700,000 players at one time?
Goose Duck, it's revolutionary from the Duck Goose, franchise.
Yeah, so I could not believe what I was seeing, right? I truly was bewildered. I was like, I don't know what this is, right? Uh-huh. So I'm looking at it must be a new thing, right? It's not even a new game. It came out in 2021, right? It just peaked this month. That's when I had a 700,000 player peak. It doubled from last month, and the month before that, it was times 8, and before that, it was times 12. Times 12. So it grew pretty fast. Now, if you're wondering, wow, this game must be great, right? I went to the Steam page, dude. It just looks like Among Us 2. I'm so confused. Why is this here?
This looks so weird. I'm looking at it. I'm kind of.
It just looks like Among Us version 2. I'm so confused. Why this is here? I can't believe you're still on the Among Us train. Yeah. If you look at like the reviews, they seem to describe it as like just like Among Us, but like better. And I look at the video, I'm like, oh yeah, this looks like Among Us, but like better, pretty much.
Here, just so you guys can see what we're looking at here. Wait, no. Hold up.
That's an advertisement. It seems.
Yes, this YouTuber. Wait, why can't I click? All right, there we go. Wow. Okay. Well, there. Oh, come on.
Oh,
Wow. Wow. Okay.
You should
never
pull up the
mind.
Steam page instead and just watch the trailer or something.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull up this.
Unless the ad zone was over, I don't know, whichever works. But
right,
yeah, the
3
game is
seconds.
described as Goose Goose Duck, a game of social deduction where you and your fellow geese must work together to complete your mission. Keep an eye out for those malicious mallards and other birds who have infiltrated your team and will do anything to stop you. And the first review I see is a mongoose, so that's cool.
This is just a way to revitalize that social game, vibe.
I just cannot believe that this says 700,000.
All it took was turning
I don't mean to like
into
discredit
geese.
it. Yeah, I think apparently there's some like I think it said 3 or something game modes or something like that, or 5 game modes. Which I don't know how you do that to Among Us, but that's kind of crazy, I guess. Look at it; it's the same. It's like kind of like clearly like is it inspired or is it like literally like the UI is very similar in many aspects. Yes. I don't know what happened. I don't know if like I just cannot believe this. Which I believe Among Us is on Steam too, right? So you would think, yeah, Among Us is on Steam, so they did not they got beaten by this game apparently. Let me look up their numbers, Among Us. And this begs the question: is Among Us 2 an actual viable strategy? Among Us peaked at 438,000 players, so this thing might double it next month or something like that. In like a significantly smaller time span. I don't know why this is happening.
This snuck in, man.
Yeah.
This snuck into the social...
I just have to point that out. It was just too strange of a thing. Like, it's one of the most strange things I've ever seen. But some gaming in your movies episode.
Sweet. All right, so now let's transition to music. All right, and here we go.
Mixed media music.
All right, welcome to Mixed Media Music. And today we will be doing a review of the score for the 1937 music Shall We Dance. But before we get started, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and media composer based in Los Angeles. And I will be joined by my 2 co-hosts on this segment. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Yeah, my name is Irving. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella, based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania.
And I'm Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and video game developer, let's say.
Yeah. All right. So, and if you're watching live, that we are not talking about YOMI Hustle or YOMI Hustle.
Oh yes.
Although I guess that will be there.
I will remove it.
Okay. So, in the last segment, if you were watching live just a few minutes ago, if you're watching in post, you can find the Arguing with Reddit segment from this week. But I mentioned that I was thinking last week about the films I watched in 2022. And I actually, so I think there are 4 films came out or like 4 films last year, maybe 5 that I watched, and that came out last year, like in that time span. So I guess that was Glass Onion, Nope, the kind of TV movie Marvel thing, the what was it, Werewolf by Night, directed by Giacchino, the composer, and Top Gun, and I guess I watched what was it called? The two big Oscar films from last year, Coda, and was Power of the
Power
Dog.
of the Dog. Terrible
Yes.
movie.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess that's a fair amount of films that I watched like from last year, But I feel like the films that I enjoyed the most last year were much older films. And this is probably the oldest film. Now, it's not the first time I've talked about an old film. I think we very early on in this show I talked about The Adventures of Robin Hood, which is I think 1938 or 1939. So we're going back to that era, and George Gershwin. Well, it's not George Gershwin, an Ira Gershwin composer and lyricist for the 1937 movie musical "Shall We Dance," starring Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire, and featuring them as dancers. Fred Astaire plays a guy named Peter Peters, who is pretending to be this great Russian ballet. He's advertised as this great Russian ballet dancer, Petrov, and he's managed by this incompetent older man, and he falls in love with Ginger Rogers' character. I can't think of what her name is, and she is an American dancer, but she does like jazz and tap kind of dancing. And she's also managed by an incompetent older gentleman. And again, music by George Gershwin, lyrics for all the songs, and I imagine a lot of a dialogue by Ira Gershwin, although I don't know how much of it he contributed to the dialogue, but he certainly wrote all the lyrics to the songs. And I mean, overall, just like even forgetting the music, it's a very cute and fun film. The humor, even though it's from 1937, definitely holds up. It's just an enjoyable like hour and a half long, maybe say hour 40-minute long film. So I don't know. It's just we don't have. Why don't we make like fun films like that anymore? I mean, I guess you could say that like. But Top Gun is fun, I guess, but in a very different sort of way. Yeah. So, but to look at the music, so I think it's a really fascinating score. Gershwin at this point had moved out to Los Angeles and started his career in Hollywood. I guess this is his, I think, second film he was working on, and he started working on another film when he died of brain cancer, and apparently he was definitely suffering from that while working on this film. It's when he first started, having symptoms of that. And there, he was saying at the time that, in particular with the next film, which I don't remember the name of, that he died before, completing. But I think also with this film that, yes, he came out to Hollywood. He thought this was going to be a place that would like appreciate what he was doing. But he found that he didn't really enjoy it because of all the, demands, rescheduling, constantly asking for changes, and last minute revision requests. He felt like he didn't have as much artistic control as he did when working on like early Broadway style musicals. But it is an interesting score because we're getting some of the last music that George Gershwin wrote. He's still a young guy at this point. He's like 37, 38. Of course, he died at the age of 39 in 1939. And so we get echoes of some of the stuff he did in the 1920s. And when we kind of think of Gershwin as one of the big icons of the jazz age, right, the Roaring '20s, with things like, especially Rhapsody in Blue, kind of a ubiquitous piece. And there are not only like stylistic echoes of that, there are literal quotations from that era, especially from Rhapsody in Blue. Like the overture at the beginning is a quotation from Rhapsody in Blue, right? I don't know why. It has nothing to do with the film. So we have the connection to that, the kind of more popular, more well-known Gershwin, but we also get what Gershwin was becoming in his late 30s, right before his death. So again, it's kind of a light-hearted film, but the music, so one other controversial, maybe not controversial, but if you're a Gershwin fan, another notable thing about this is it's really the only source of Gershwin music that is inaccessible in score and even in recorded form. Only a tiny, only like one real sequence from it, and a couple of like the big songs are published, but like in terms of orchestral instrumental sequences, really only the walking the dog scene is published. And I guess yes, and it was published in the 1960s under the title of Promenade. It's kind of like a solo for clarinet over top of orchestra. It's like 2 minutes long. It's quite popular for Gershwin fans, or even just general audiences. Walking the Dog or Promenade. And I guess some of the finale, if you like the published version of the end song, Shall We Dance, has some of the like gigantic final number, which is the Harriet Hochter Ballet, which my connection to that is so Harriet Hochter is actually, they use her actual name in the film. She was a dancer, ballet dancer that Gershwin thought was really good. He wanted to put her in the film. So she gets like a whole sequence where she dances, even though she's not one of the main characters. She's just thrown in there to dance with Fred Astaire. She actually was my mother's ballet teacher when my mother was a child. But yeah, so there's a lot of music for this that, well, first off, a lot of music was recorded that was never put in the film, and everything else, it's even on the official soundtrack from 1937. Only the overture and all the songs are in it. Not even "Walking the Dog" is on the official soundtrack. So there's a ton of music in here that only exists if you watch the film. Not available anywhere else. And there are a lot of really short and charming sequences, like the Walking the Dog sequence. Obviously, is that exists, but there are lots of like really small, like dance numbers, or like the music for like flying in an airplane, and like the ballet of waves around this cruise ship. Really fascinating small numbers. And I think it would be really helpful to see some of the scores for this stuff. It's quite fascinating because, yes, like I said, we have some echoes of like this big kind of 1920s jazz age Gershwin, and like with jazz that era inflection, but we're also getting echoes of when Gershwin went to study in France. And he went to study in France, and he tried to study with Ravel, and Ravel said, I can't teach you. I would take away what makes Gershwin, and you don't want to become Ravel. It's quite interesting because Ravel didn't teach many people, although he did teach some. He did teach like Vaughan Williams, for example, and we've talked about Vaughan Williams and Ravel on this show. So Gershwin eventually studied with Nadia Boulanger, who a French, not so much of a composer as maybe the biggest teacher of composers in the 20th century. Lots of Americans went to France to go study with her. And we see some of the results of that, like in his American in Paris in I want to say 1929 or 1931. This is an entire decade later, though. So not only has he studied at this point, like under a real like classical teacher in Nadia Boulanger, but he's added a whole decade of increasing musical sophistication. So he's even more than like in American in Paris or in his rumba orchestral work from I think like 1934, 1935. There's like another rumba sequence in here too. It's far more harmonically daring. He's kind of moving beyond just like chromatic harmony and like traditional jazz kind of harmony and diatonic harmony, and moving into like a lot more kind of late pre World War II, modern harmony. So that's kind of interesting that he's drawing influence from some like like high end of modernism era stuff. There are also a lot of echoes in I think if someone like George Antheil and machine music, and that doesn't mean AI, but like literally music that is trying to like mimic machines, like the movement of like the sound of like steam engines on the ocean liner. So very interesting kind of blend of like later modernism with also reflecting a lot of reflections of his study of like classical ballet in there as well. Not only just for ballet dancing sequences, but just like in general, if like kind of programmatic, like we have just like the waves, like the ballet of the waves, which is we get to see the boat kind of going up and down on the waves, and that's very like kind of classical ballet style. A really good and interesting mix of things that people don't really associate with Gershwin, and it kind of shows you the direction he was heading at the end of his life. It is also an interesting instrumental combination. He apparently the group that performs the music in this is the Tommy Dorsey band with strings. So Tommy Dorsey band is one of the big bands of the big band era. So at this time, Tommy Dorsey is generally he's called the sentimental gentleman of swing. Because he tended to go for more like ballad style stuff instead of really kind of driving dance music, although he certainly did both. And Tommy Dorsey and Glenn Miller had actually played in some of his like the Broadway hits of his Broadway musicals. So this is an interesting combination of big band and like a small number of orchestral strings. We really don't see that these days. There are some use of this sort of combination. The idea of having like strings, and other like orchestral playing of jazz goes back to George Whiteman in the 20s, and George Whiteman commissioning Rhapsody in Blue, right? And that like your orchestral world playing jazz, but a real like jazz big band with additional strings is really not a very common sound not a common ensemble or sound world. There's a little bit of that happening in like that era, 37 up to like end of World War II. People were playing with that a little bit. That really seemed to die. People will they'll just have like an orchestra and add a saxophone. Like, oh well, that's how we're gonna get around this. Instead of having, there's just a different sound world to a real big band that has strings playing with it as well. So that is an interesting color palette that I think is worth exploring. I really can't think of any other examples, like large-scale examples of that in film or otherwise. So it could be something interesting for composers to think about. Yeah, and in general, it's in some ways it's got a lot of like really sharp rhythms and syncopation, especially in the final number, "Shall We Dance." So a lot of the songs are highlights, although for different reasons. "Let's Call the Whole Thing Off" has kind of become a jazz standard, especially after Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong recorded a version of it. And then the kind of big sentimental, so to speak, number from it, love number, "They Can't Take That Away From Me." Really, really fantastic. Also kind of a jazz ballad standard. It has this kind of interesting I guess scene where with the song "Slap That Bass," where our male lead Fred Astaire goes to like the engine room of the ship where there are a bunch or only African American men who are working down there on the engines, and he goes and does this kind of jazz number with them, and it was kind of innovative at the time because there weren't that many combinations in film of black and white people and like mixing even just not in film but like in 1937 but jazz music is still pretty segregated between white and black musicians. So that's notable. And I just think it's interesting too because I think that there's in some ways like the difference between the music here in 1937 and Gershwin at the end of his life and his earlier stuff, even at like the early 30s, is that there's kind of more of like a juxtaposition of like really harsh kind of stuff and really sweet stuff. I mean, it's always lyrical, whereas some ways this really much starker contrasts between things. And of course, it really succeeds, I think, at least the songs do, because of the inventiveness of Ira Gershwin's lyrics. I think these are some of Ira Gershwin's best lyrics overall. And it actually kind of brings, the film literally brings up the question of, style and what is jazz, and is like what is Gershwin writing in at this point, right? Because like I said, we literally have quotations from Rhapsody in Blue. I think a lot of his songs have become jazz standards, but this is also incorporating a lot of orchestral stuff, modernist harmony, machine trends like imitation of machines in music. And at one point, the manager of Fred Astaire, right, the ballet dancer, his manager says, he's scandalized, like, what, you want to dance this jazz nonsense? And Fred Astaire's character says, jazz? What is jazz? Jazz died in the 1920s, So that's really interesting, right? The film itself is asking us, like, what is jazz? Is this what jazz has become, right? This kind of blend of modernist stuff and big bands, and it's not really a trend, I think, that really continued beyond this. So it kind of asks some interesting historical questions. So yeah, overall, I think it's an enjoyable film to watch, and kind of interesting sound palette, and gives us an indication of what Gershwin would have wanted to do, if he had made it into his 40s. And it's really definitely, I think, the pinnacle of the brief George Gershwin Hollywood career. So interesting score. I recommend checking it out.
Yeah, no, sounds cool.
Yep.
Sweet. Yeah, I have nothing to add to that. Makes me want to check out the movie.
It's a fun little film. It's like an hour and 40 minutes maybe. And like the thing I thought was the most surprising, I guess, is that the humor like actually holds up. It's I was kind of surprised, and like I would think in some ways that, like, I was kind of expecting like jokes from 1937 to just kind of fall flat, but no, it works. It's like it's maybe a bit exaggerated by today's standards of like an adult movie. I think some of it might work better in like a kid's film, I guess, but like you wouldn't expect to see it like in a adult film, but also has pretensions of being somewhat serious. I wouldn't think, but it still works.
Cool. Awesome. Well, you want to take us out? Oh, actually, take us out, and then I actually have to do what Nathan did in a moment and tag on some news stuff at the end. But yeah, go ahead.
All right, well, thank you for listening to Mixed Media Music, and if you've been watching the whole show live, thank you for watching this week's episode of Mixed Media. Make sure you like and or whatever the equivalent of that is on whatever your platform that you're viewing or listening to us. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you liked or didn't like. Feel free to join our Discord and continue talking about art throughout the week. And links to our locals page where you can support us, and to everything else. It's Mixed Media. Oh, it's not on the screen right now, is it?
Like to what? Oh, the locals?
Everything.
Oh, mixedmediapodcast.com.
Right. Okay, I can remember if it's .com or .net. Okay, mixedmediapodcast.com. Yeah.
Sweet. And speaking of the Discord, I will end with this. I don't know how I forgot this. It's because we talked about it on the Discord. That's how I forgot to mention this. Was that Alec Baldwin and company have been well, there's different results for different people. So the first AD, he was given a plea deal, to which he has to serve no jail time for effectively like a manslaughter type offense, which that's a pretty good deal. So he took it, and there's a few reasons why he might have taken a deal, and other ones might not have been extended a deal, or they haven't taken a deal. Those details aren't out yet. But a lot of times when that happens, it's because the person who took the deal was the first person who was like, I see the train coming, and I'm going to throw everyone else under it. So, and prosecutors, they love that, because they can basically secure a prosecution, using one very loyal witness, potentially. That might be the case.
What's an AD again?
First Assistant Director. We did a 3-part series, very long, on this particular event. I explained film roles. I explained the procedure for handling firearms on sets. I explained film culture, and I explained the firearms and the mechanisms themselves. So, if you want to check that out, I think so. A lot of the, I would say, interpersonal details are rather disputed in that video, but the core facts seem to have holden up. So, like, who handed who the gun, like, that kind of stuff, seems to be roughly correct in that video series. But these people were mad, and so they did that. Like that, we were compiling a lot of statements from different people who were highly motivated to frame things in very particular ways, and those stuff is like all in dispute. Whether the film crew had to drive from here to there, whether the film crew was even playing with the gun, off site. There's people say yes, there's people say no. There's a lot of details that have been pouring forth. I've been waiting to do a recap because the details just keep coming from this really old story, and now we've arrived at actually charging them, and I'm kind of aghast because I'm like, I really was sure that they were not going to do it, and now that they have done it, now I'm like, why did it take so long? It's been forever. Normally, if you have, it might have just been, it could be a few things. It could be, sometimes you get a, what's the right word for that? Like a prosecutor who wants to make their name, make their bones, and having an Alec Baldwin case is definitely one way to get your name on the map. That's for sure. If that's what you're endeavoring to do, and they were waiting for them, themselves to get that one linchpin to for sure nail it down, because there's a few questions of intent. Now, who may have provided their own demise for those questions of intent? Alec Baldwin himself, likely, because he had to go blabbing to everyone about everything like an idiot. Like, you don't do that. But, I guess he decided to, so we'll see what happens to him. But there's a lot of speculation as to whether or not they would even take a deal. Some people who think they know because they're close to Alec Baldwin. I take these things like a grain of salt. Say that he would never take a deal anyway, that he would rather see it through court. If they're going to offer you a similar type deal, you should take it. You should definitely take it. If it involves no jail time, you are potentially facing up to like 10 years in jail. So you should take it because you actually probably are guilty, as we talked about in the episodes before. There's usually not a reason to point a gun at someone without taking your due diligence. And we talked about the exceptions that might the very, very minute hole that he might be able to thread himself through in that episode as well. But I wouldn't trust a jury to that to thread the needle for you and your lawyer, and lawyers make or break cases. So, I would take the deal if I were him, but we'll see what happens. So I would definitely be covering that as the charging documents become public, etc., etc., etc. I'm kind of hyped to see finally what people are willing to say in court instead of just blabbing on TV or in Twitter or something like that. So, yeah, that's the news. I forgot it because we talked about it on Discord, so I forgot to mention it on the actual show. So, if you have thoughts on that, head over to the Discord.
Nice.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I guess we'll see you next week.
All right, see you guys.
Yeah, thanks for listening and watching.
Look, tell a man no trouble, I don't want beef, man, I just want vibes. Big man like me, no need for the telephone hype. I got too much getting online. One rule, then I'm on site. Wrong move, I bet they gon' ride. No need for the telephone hype, nah. No need for the snoozing. Big whip outside, I'm cruising. Big stick inside, no losing. Better watch out for the snake and Judas is. Don't ask them who this is. I bet they know what I'm moving in. I bet I show it into a dim. How you hate and then lose again? How you hating my vibes? Why you wasting my time? Getting hype on my line. Tell a man I don't want feedback, I just want relax. Brand new whip, two-tone, I need that brand new hit. You know, like lean back.